Commander Zekthara stood before the large viewing screen on the bridge of his ship. His 6 arms moved across the control panels with practiced ease. 300 years of military service had taught him to read the patterns of war. The scene before him was one he had seen many times. The humans were losing. Their small fleet of ships moved in simple formations across the dark space near their colony world of Kepler Prime. The vessels looked crude compared to the sleek warships of the Galactic Coalition. Human technology was at least 50 years behind most member species. Their weapons were basic projectile systems and primitive energy beams. Their shields flickered weakly under enemy fire. "Same old story," muttered his aide, a young Vorthak officer with eager eyes. "Another new species about to learn what real war means." Zekthara's 4 eyes remained fixed on the display. The Devourers had emerged from dark space 3 weeks ago. These ancient creatures had been sleeping for centuries in the void between galaxies. Now they were awake and hungry. They consumed entire worlds, leaving nothing but empty rock behind. The humans had only joined the coalition 6 months ago. They were the newest member species, still learning how galactic politics worked. Earth seemed like a peaceful place from the reports Zekthara had read. The humans fought small wars among themselves, but nothing compared to the massive conflicts that shaped the galaxy. "Sir, incoming message from Admiral Vex Nor," his communications officer announced. The hologram of Admiral Vex Nor appeared above the main console. The Altarian Admiral's scales glowed a dim blue, showing his calm mood. "Commander Zekthara, you will observe the human response to Devourer contact. Record their tactical choices for the training archives." "Understood, Admiral. Same protocols as the Zelani incident?" "Exactly. Watch how they react. Document their mistakes. We will use this data to train them properly. Once they survive their first real encounter with galactic threats." The hologram faded. Zekthara turned back to the screen. He had done this many times before. New species always made the same errors when facing their first major enemy. They panicked. They scattered their forces. They made emotional decisions instead of logical ones. The Zelani had tried to fight the Void Pirates with their entire fleet in one desperate battle. They lost half their ships in the first hour. The Korath had abandoned 3 colonies without fighting when the hive mind invaded their space. The Yithrak had surrendered immediately when faced with the war machines of the Dead Zone. All of these species learned from their mistakes. They joined coalition military academies, studied proper tactics, and became valuable members of the Galactic Defense Force. It was always the same pattern: fear, mistakes, learning, and finally acceptance of their place in the larger universe. The humans would be no different. On the screen, a massive Devourer ship emerged from hyperspace. The creature was 3 kilometers long, covered in organic armor that pulsed with sickly green light. Smaller Devourer vessels swarmed around it like insects. These beings had consumed over 40 worlds in the past month. They were heading straight for Kepler Prime. "Human fleet is moving to intercept," reported the tactical officer. Zekthara watched as 20 human ships moved into defensive positions. Their formation was textbook basic. A simple line with heavy ships in front, and lighter vessels providing support from behind. It was the kind of formation taught to cadets in their first year at military school. "They are following Standard Formation 7, noted his aide. At least they learned something from coalition training. The first Devourer attacks began. Green energy beams lashed out at the human ships. Several vessels took heavy damage immediately. Human shields were too weak to stop the assault for long. Return fire from the humans barely scratched the Devourer armor. "Estimated time until human fleet collapse?" Zekthara asked. 12 minutes, sir. Maybe 15 if they retreat in good order." But something strange happened. Instead of breaking formation when their lead ship exploded, the humans moved closer together. When their shields failed, they positioned damaged ships to protect healthy ones. When their weapons proved ineffective, they changed to ramming attacks. "Interesting," Zekthara said quietly. 3 human ships crashed directly into Devourer vessels. The explosions were massive. For the first time in the battle, Devourer ships were destroyed. The remaining human vessels regrouped and continued fighting. "Sir, I am reading massive energy spikes from the human colony," the sensor operator called out. On the screen, the surface of Kepler Prime lit up with thousands of bright points. Every city, every outpost, every mining station was powering up weapons that should not exist. The humans had been building defenses in secret. Orbital defense platforms rose from hidden bases on the planet's moons. These were not simple laser turrets. They were massive magnetic railguns that fired projectiles at incredible speeds. The first salvo caught the Devourer ships completely by surprise. "Where did they get those weapons?" his aide asked in shock. Zekthara studied the tactical display. The human defense platforms were using technology he had never seen before. The projectiles they fired were not simple metal slugs. They were some kind of exotic matter that caused chain reactions in Devourer armor. "Sir, incoming transmission from the human fleet commander," the communications officer reported. A human face appeared on the screen. The female wore a simple uniform with basic rank insignia. Her eyes were calm despite the battle raging around her ship. "This is Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Force. We thank the Coalition for your observation mission. Please maintain safe distance. We are beginning Phase 2 of our defense plan." The transmission ended before Zekthara could respond. "Phase 2? His aide asked. What was Phase 1? They were about to find out. The human ships suddenly scattered in all directions, but not in panic. They moved with precise timing, each vessel taking a specific position around the Devourer fleet. At the exact same moment, every human ship fired a different type of weapon. Some launched clouds of metallic particles that interfered with Devourer sensors. Others fired electromagnetic pulses that disrupted enemy communications. Several ships released swarms of tiny robots that attached themselves to Devourer hulls and began cutting through armor. The Devourers found themselves fighting an enemy they could not predict. Human tactics made no sense according to standard military doctrine. They wasted ammunition on attacks that seemed pointless. They sacrificed valuable ships for minor tactical advantages. They used their own vessels as weapons when conventional attacks failed. But it was working. After 2 hours of combat, the Devourer fleet began to retreat. They had expected easy prey, and found something else entirely. The humans had lost half their ships, but they had achieved something remarkable. They had forced an ancient enemy to withdraw. Zekthara stared at the aftermath displayed on his screens. Debris from both fleets floated in space around Kepler Prime. The human colony was damaged but intact. Most importantly, the Devourers were gone. "Sir, should we offer assistance to the human survivors?" Zekthara was quiet for a long moment. In 300 years of military service, he had never seen anything like what just happened. New species were not supposed to win their first encounter with galactic-level threats. They were supposed to learn through defeat and suffering. The humans had rewritten the script. "Send standard offers of medical assistance and repair supplies," he finally said, "and prepare a full report for Admiral Vex Nor." As his aide moved to follow orders, Zekthara continued staring at the tactical display. Something was bothering him about what he had witnessed. The human tactics had seemed chaotic and desperate, but looking back, he could see patterns. Every seemingly wasteful attack had served a purpose. Every sacrifice had gained a specific advantage. The humans had not been fighting desperately. They had been fighting intelligently in a way that looked like desperation to outside observers. For the first time in his long career, Zekthara wondered if he truly understood what he had just witnessed. The conflict had felt familiar at first, but now, reviewing the battle data, he realized that nothing about human behavior matched the patterns he knew. The humans were different. The question was, how different? 3 weeks after the first battle at Kepler Prime, Zekthara found himself watching another human crisis unfold. This time, the target was Kepler Station, a mining outpost in the asteroid belt. 50,000 human civilians lived and worked there, extracting rare minerals from the floating rocks. The Devourers had learned from their previous defeat. Instead of attacking directly, they surrounded the station with a massive fleet. No ships could get in or out. No supplies could reach the trapped humans. It was a classic siege tactic that had worked for thousands of years against countless species. Standard Coalition Protocol recommends immediate evacuation, reported his aide, reading from the tactical manual. The humans should begin emergency departure procedures within the next 6 hours. Zekthara nodded. He had seen this many times before. When faced with a siege, smart commanders evacuated their people to safety. The station itself could be retaken later when reinforcements arrived. People were more valuable than buildings or equipment. The coalition had offered to send evacuation ships. The passage would be dangerous, but most of the civilians could escape if they moved quickly. It was the logical choice. It was what every intelligent species would do. The humans refused. "I do not understand their thinking," his aide said, reviewing the human response. "They claim they will defend the station. With what? They have minimal military presence there." Zekthara studied the intelligence reports. Kepler Station had a security force of only 200 guards. They possessed basic weapons suitable for dealing with pirates or accidents. The station's defenses consisted of a few automated turrets and a basic shield generator. Against a Devourer siege fleet, these preparations were useless. "Perhaps they do not understand the situation," his aide suggested. "Should we explain the danger to them?" Before Zekthara could answer, his communications officer interrupted. "Sir, incoming message from Kepler Station. The station commander wants to speak with us." The hologram of a human male appeared above the console. He looked tired but determined. Behind him, Zekthara could see the busy interior of the station's command center. People moved around with purpose, but there was no sign of panic. "Commander Zekthara, this is Station Commander Williams. We appreciate your offer to observe the siege. We wanted you to know we will not be evacuating." "Commander Williams, your position is hopeless," Zekthara replied. "Your defenses cannot withstand a Devourer assault. Evacuation is your only reasonable option." Williams smiled. It was not a happy expression. "Sir, we understand the risks. But this is our home. These are our families and our friends. We choose to make our stand here. You will all die. Maybe, but the Devourers will pay for it." The transmission ended. Zekthara sat back in his command chair, confused. Emotional attachments were normal, but intelligent beings did not choose certain death over temporary displacement. The humans were acting irrationally. "Sir, shall I inform Admiral Vexnor that the humans require psychological evaluation?" Zekthara almost agreed, but something made him pause. The human commander had not seemed unstable or frightened. Williams had appeared calm and thoughtful. His decision was not the result of panic or confusion. He had chosen to fight knowing the odds. "No, we will observe and record as ordered." Over the next few days, Zekthara watched the siege develop. The Devourers tightened their grip around the station, cutting off all communication with the outside. They began probing attacks, testing the human defenses. The results were predictable. Human weapons barely damaged the enemy ships. The station's shields weakened with each assault. But something strange was happening inside the station. The humans were not preparing for evacuation. Instead, they were preparing for war. Civilian miners had stopped extracting minerals and started building weapons. Factory workers had converted their equipment to produce ammunition and explosives. Even children were involved, carrying supplies and messages throughout the station. "Sir, our deep sensors are picking up massive construction activity inside the station," the sensor operator reported. "They appear to be building something." 1. Zekthara studied the energy readings. The humans were using enormous amounts of power for unknown projects. Their industrial facilities were running at maximum capacity. Whatever they were building, it was large and complex. "Can we determine what they are constructing?" "Negative, sir. The station's hull is blocking our scans, but the power consumption suggests multiple large-scale projects." On the 10th day of the siege, the Devourers launched their first major assault. A dozen enemy ships attacked the station's main docking bay. The human defenses responded as expected. Turrets fired their basic weapons. The shield generator struggled to deflect the incoming attacks. Within minutes, the docking bay was breached. Devourer troops poured into the station. These creatures were nightmare beings, part organic and part machine. They had sharp claws, acid for blood, and an hunger that could never be satisfied. They moved through the station corridors, expecting to find terrified civilians hiding in storage rooms and maintenance areas. Instead, they found a war zone. Every corridor had been transformed into a killing field. The humans had removed sections of the floor and ceiling, creating choke points and ambush positions. They had rigged explosives throughout the station's structure. Most importantly, they had armed every single person capable of holding a weapon. The Devourers found themselves fighting not just the station's security force, but every human on the station. Miners used industrial cutting tools as weapons. Engineers had built makeshift guns from mining equipment. Even elderly civilians threw homemade explosives at the invaders. "Sir, I am reading massive explosions throughout the station," the tactical officer reported. "The humans are destroying their own infrastructure to stop the Devourer advance." Zekthara watched the battle unfold with growing amazement. The humans were fighting in a way he had never seen before. They showed no fear of death. They sacrificed themselves to save others without hesitation. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to enjoy the combat. "Listen to this, sir," his communications officer said. He had managed to tap into the station's internal communication system. The speakers filled with human voices. They were singing, not songs of farewell or religious prayers, but war songs. Battle hymns that spoke of glory and victory. The humans sang while they fought, while they died, while they watched their home being destroyed around them. It was the most terrifying sound Zekthara had ever heard. The siege continued for 18 days. The Devourers controlled most of the station, but they paid a terrible price for every room they captured. Human resistance never stopped. Even when only a few hundred defenders remained, they continued fighting with the same intensity as the first day. On the final day, the humans made their last stand in the station's central core. Surrounded by thousands of Devourer troops, the remaining humans activated a weapon they had been building throughout the siege. The station's reactor core had been converted into a massive bomb. "Sir, energy spike detected. The humans are going to destroy the entire station." The explosion lit up space for thousands of kilometers. Kepler Station vanished in a ball of fire that consumed most of the Devourer assault fleet. The remaining enemy ships immediately retreated to a safe distance. Zekthara stared at the empty space where the station had been. 50,000 humans had died, but they had taken nearly 100,000 Devourers with them. The exchange rate was unheard of. New species were supposed to lose 10-1 against veteran enemies. The humans had achieved better than 2-1 in their favor. More importantly, the Devourers were retreating. For the first time in recorded history, these ancient predators had chosen to withdraw rather than immediately press their advantage. The human resistance had cost them so much that they needed time to regroup. "Sir, incoming priority message from Admiral Vex Nor." The Admiral's hologram appeared, his scales now glowing orange with concern. "Commander Zekthara, your reports about human behavior are disturbing. Are you certain of your observations?" "Yes, sir. The humans chose death over evacuation. They transformed their entire civilian population into combatants. They fought with a level of intensity I have never witnessed." "And they were singing?" "Yes, sir. War songs, battle hymns. They seemed to find joy in combat." Admiral Vex Nor was quiet for a long moment. His scales shifted to deep red, showing his worry. "Commander, I want you to study human military history, access their cultural databases, find out if this behavior is normal for their species." "Sir, what are you thinking?" "I am thinking we may have made an error in our assessment. These humans may not be like other new species. They may be something else entirely." The hologram faded. Zekthara turned back to the empty space where Kepler Station had been. The Devourers were still retreating, their massive fleet moving away from human space. An ancient enemy that had consumed worlds for millions of years was now afraid to attack a species they had never encountered before. For the first time in his long career, Zekthara wondered if the coalition truly understood what they had invited to join them. The humans had just demonstrated capabilities that defied everything he knew about civilized warfare. They had not fought like desperate survivors trying to escape extinction. They had fought like predators defending their territory. The conflict had felt familiar until today. But watching 50,000 civilians choose death over defeat had shown him something new. Something that made him question everything he thought he knew about war. What kind of species teaches their children to sing while fighting? What kind of people find joy in battle? What kind of civilization produces warriors who smile while they die? Zekthara was beginning to suspect he was about to find out. Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the holographic display in the Coalition Command Center, her calm expression unchanged as she presented what would later be called the most insane military plan in galactic history. Around the table, representatives from 12 different species stared at the human admiral with expressions ranging from shock to horror. Zekthara sat at the far end of the table, his four eyes focused intently on the human commander. After studying human military history for 2 weeks, he had learned things about Earth that disturbed his sleep. The humans had fought over 15,000 wars in their recorded history. Their planet had experienced fewer than 300 years of total peace across several millennia. The plan is simple, Admiral Chen said, pointing to the star map floating above the table. We make our stand at the Thermopylae system. 3 human colonies will act as bait to draw the entire Devourer Armada into a prepared killing ground. You are talking about sacrificing millions of people, protested Admiral Vexnor. His scales had turned dark purple with shock. 3 entire worlds as bait? It is impossible. Admiral Chen's expression did not change. The colonies have already agreed. Every civilian understands their role. We estimate total casualties at 60% on the bait worlds, but the tactical advantage will be decisive. 60% casualties? Admiral Cathara of the Selenite Empire could barely speak. You are discussing genocide as a military strategy. No, Admiral Chen replied quietly. We are discussing victory. Zekthara studied the human admiral's face. She was young by coalition standards, barely 50 Earth years old. Her species had only been in space for a few centuries. She should have been asking for guidance from more experienced commanders. Instead, she was presenting a battle plan that violated every principle of civilized warfare. Admiral Chen, he said carefully, your plan requires tactics that no species has ever attempted. The psychological cost alone would destroy military morale. Not for humans. The simple statement hung in the air like a challenge. Admiral Chen activated another display, showing detailed schematics of the Thermopylae system. The system has a natural choke point between 2 massive stars. Any fleet entering the system must pass through a narrow corridor of stable space. We have spent the last month mining that corridor with weapons the Devourers have never encountered. What kind of weapons? Asked General Morath of the Crystal Hives. Admiral Chen smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Human weapons. Things we have been developing since we joined the coalition. Things we have not had reason to use until now. Zekthara felt a chill run through his body. Human weapons. He had studied Earth's military history and learned that humans had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing each other. They had developed weapons of incredible sophistication and terrible efficiency. If they had been holding back their best technology, show us, Admiral Vexnor demanded. The display changed to show technical specifications that made several coalition officers leave the room. Dimensional warheads that could tear holes in space itself. Gravity mines that created miniature black holes. Weapons that converted matter directly into energy. Devices that could turn enemy ships into temporary suns. Where did you develop these technologies? General Morath asked in a whisper. We have been working on them since we discovered we were not alone in the universe. Admiral Chen replied. Every human colony has secret research facilities. Every human ship carries experimental weapons. We have been preparing for this war since before we knew who we would fight. Impossible, Admiral Vexnor said. Weapons of this sophistication require centuries of development. Admiral Chen's smile grew wider. Admiral, humans have been developing weapons of mass destruction for over 1,000 years. We split the atom before we learned to fly. We built planet-killing devices before we left our solar system. Creating new ways to destroy things is something we are very good at. Zekthara's mind raced as he processed this information. The humans had not been learning warfare from the Coalition. They had been holding back their true capabilities while they studied their new allies and potential enemies. Every battle so far had been fought with deliberately limited forces using basic technology. "You have been testing us," he said suddenly. Admiral Chen turned to look at him directly. Her human eyes were Predator's eyes, calm and calculating. "Yes. The battles at Kepler Prime and Kepler Station. You could have won those engagements more easily." "Yes. Why did you not use your full capabilities?" "Because we needed to understand how galactic warfare worked. We needed to study our enemies and our allies. We needed to know who could be trusted." Admiral Vexnor's scales had turned bright red with anger. "You allowed 50,000 people to die at Kepler Station when you could have saved them?" "No," Admiral Chen said firmly. "Those people chose to die to give us the information we needed. They volunteered for a mission that would teach us how Devourers fight in close combat. Their sacrifice was not waste. It was intelligence gathering." The room fell silent. Zekthara realized he was looking at a species that thought about warfare in ways no other civilization could comprehend. Humans did not just fight wars. They studied their enemies during combat. They used their own losses as learning experiences. "And now?" he asked. "Now we know enough. The testing phase is over. We are ready to show you what human warfare actually looks like." Admiral Chen activated a new display showing the positions of human fleets throughout the galaxy. Zekthara stared in shock. There were 3 times as many human ships as the Coalition had known about. Hidden fleets had been moving into position for weeks. Where did these ships come from? "We have been building them since we joined the Coalition. Every human colony has secret shipyards. Every human trade mission has been scouting potential battlegrounds. We have been preparing for this moment since our first day in galactic space." "This is madness," General Morath said. "No species maintains secret military forces while pretending to be peaceful." Admiral Chen looked at the Crystal Hive commander with something approaching pity. "General, humans have never been peaceful. We have been trying to learn how to be peaceful by watching other species. It is not working very well." She activated another display showing Earth's military history. Wars and conflicts stretching back thousands of years. Weapons development that had never stopped. Military strategies that had been refined through constant practice. "We thought joining the Coalition would help us control our nature. Instead, we discovered that the galaxy is full of threats that require our specific talents." "What talents?" Admiral Vexnor asked. Though Zekthara suspected he did not want to know the answer. "We are very good at war," Admiral Chen said simply. "It is what we evolved for. It is what our entire civilization is built around. Other species develop art, philosophy, or science as their highest achievements. Humans develop better ways to fight." She paused, looking around the table at the assembled Coalition commanders. "The Devourers think they are apex predators because they can consume planets. But they have never encountered a species that views extinction-level threats as interesting tactical challenges." Admiral Chen turned back to the star map, pointing to the Thermopylae system. "In 72 hours, the Devourer Armada will enter this system, expecting to find desperate defenders trying to protect their colonies. Instead, they will find something they have never seen before." "What?" Zekthara asked, though he was beginning to suspect the answer. "Humans unleashed." Admiral Chen began explaining the details of the Thermopylae Gambit. As she spoke, Zekthara realized he was witnessing the moment when humanity stopped pretending to be a peaceful species and revealed what they truly were. The plan was brilliant, ruthless, and completely insane by Coalition standards. It required tactics that no other species could psychologically endure. It demanded sacrifices that would break the morale of any civilized military. It relied on weapons and strategies that violated several interstellar treaties. Most disturbing of all, it would probably work. When Admiral Chen finished her presentation, the room remained silent for long minutes. Finally, Admiral Vex Nor spoke in a quiet voice. If you succeed with this plan, if you defeat the Devourers using these methods, the other coalition species will fear you. Admiral Chen nodded. Yes, they will question whether humanity should be allowed such military power. Yes, some may consider you a threat to galactic peace. Admiral Chen's smile returned, cold and predatory. Admiral, when this is over, galactic peace will be whatever humans say it is. The conference ended shortly after that statement. As the various coalition representatives filed out of the room, many casting worried glances at the human admiral, Zekthara remained behind. Admiral Chen, may I ask you something? Of course. Commander, your species has been pretending to be something you are not, since you joined the coalition. Why reveal the truth now? Admiral Chen studied him for a moment before answering. Because the Devourers made a mistake, Commander. They threatened our territory. They killed our people. They made us angry. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. You know what your people's problem is, Commander. You have been at peace for so long that you have forgotten what war actually means. You think it is about tactics and technology and logistics. What is it about then? Admiral Chen looked back at him with those predator's eyes. War is about making the other side stop existing. Everything else is just details. After she left, Zekthara sat alone in the empty conference room, staring at the tactical displays that showed humanity's true military strength. He finally understood why the battles had felt familiar until now. The humans had been letting them feel familiar. Now the coalition was about to see what unfamiliar looked like. The Battle of Thermopylae lasted 18 hours and changed the galaxy forever. Zekthara watched from his observation ship as the largest Devourer armada in recorded history entered the system. Over 10,000 enemy vessels moved through the narrow corridor between the twin stars, confident in their overwhelming numbers. They had consumed 40 worlds in the past 2 months. 3 more human colonies would barely be noticed. The trap closed with mechanical precision. The first wave of human weapons activated when the Devourer fleet reached the center of the corridor. Gravity mines created dozens of miniature black holes that tore enemy ships apart at the molecular level. Dimensional warheads opened tiers in space itself, causing entire sections of the armada to simply vanish from existence. But the Devourers were ancient and experienced. They adapted quickly to the new weapons, spreading their formation and using expendable ships to trigger the mines. Within 6 hours, they had pushed through the corridor and reached the 3 bait worlds. What they found there defied every assumption about human behavior. The colonies were not trying to evacuate. The civilians were not hiding in shelters. Instead, every human settlement had been converted into a fortress. Every building was a weapons platform. Every person was a combatant. Sir, I am reading massive energy signatures from all 3 worlds, his sensor operator reported. The humans appear to have weaponized their entire infrastructure. Zekthara studied the tactical display in growing amazement. Farming equipment had been converted into missile launchers. Mining facilities were firing streams of molten metal into space. Even children's playgrounds had been transformed into defensive positions. The Devourers landed on the first world expecting easy prey. Instead, they found a population that fought with religious intensity. Human families worked together as military units. Grandparents operated heavy weapons while children carried ammunition. Entire neighborhoods coordinated their defenses like veteran military formations. They are not fighting to survive, Zekthara said quietly. They are fighting to inflict maximum damage before they die. Sir, incoming transmission from Admiral Chen's flagship. The hologram of the human admiral appeared on his screen. Behind her, Zekthara could see the busy bridge of a warship, unlike anything in the Coalition database. The ship's design was aggressive and predatory, built for hunting rather than defending. Commander Zekthara, thank you for observing our operation. You are about to witness the beginning of Operation Righteous Fury. Admiral, the Devourers control significant portions of all 3 worlds. The tactical situation appears desperate. Admiral Chen smiled, and for the first time, Zekthara saw genuine happiness in her expression. Commander, desperate is when you have no options left. We have been waiting 3 months to use our best options. The transmission ended. Moments later, Space around the Thermopylae system filled with new arrivals. Human ships began appearing everywhere. Not through normal hyperspace jumps, but through technology that seemed to ignore the laws of physics. Ships materialized inside Devourer formations. Others appeared to step sideways through dimensions. Some simply became visible, as if they had been hiding in plain sight. "Sir, I am reading over 5,000 new human vessels," the tactical officer said in disbelief. "Where did they come from?" Zekthara realized the humans had been lying about more than just their peaceful nature. Their technology was far more advanced than they had revealed. The crude ships and basic weapons from earlier battles had been deliberate deceptions. The real human fleet was beautiful and terrifying. Their ships moved with deadly grace, using weapons that redefined the meaning of overkill. Devourer vessels that had seemed invincible suddenly found themselves outmatched and outgunned. But the most disturbing discovery was how the humans fought. They did not follow standard coalition tactics. They did not maintain defensive formations or preserve their forces for strategic advantage. Instead, they attacked with a ferocity that made the Devourers look restrained by comparison. Human ships rammed enemy vessels at full speed, detonating in explosions that consumed everything within kilometers. Human boarding parties did not try to capture enemy ships. They infected them with something that turned the organic components against each other. Most frightening of all, the humans began to sing. The same battle hymns Zekthara had heard during the siege of Kepler Station now filled the communication channels. Thousands of human voices raised in harmony while they fought and died. It was the sound of a species that had found its purpose. "Sir, the Devourers are trying to retreat," the sensor operator announced. Zekthara watched as the ancient enemy attempted to withdraw from the system. But the humans had anticipated this. Human ships appeared to cut off every escape route, using the same impossible technology that had brought them to the battle. "They are not allowing any Devourers to escape," his aide observed. "No," Zekthara said quietly. "They are not." Admiral Chen's voice filled the communication channel, broadcasting to every ship in the system. "This is Admiral Chen to all Devourer forces. You came to our space to consume our worlds. You killed our people and destroyed our homes. Now you will learn what happens when you threaten humanity." The human assault intensified. Ships that had seemed destroyed suddenly reactivated and resumed fighting. Weapons that had appeared to malfunction began firing again with increased power. It was as if the humans had been holding back, even during their apparent maximum effort. "Sir, I am reading some kind of quantum resonance effect," the science officer reported. "The humans appear to be using their own destroyed ships as weapons." Zekthara stared at the sensor data. The humans had developed technology that allowed them to use wreckage as ammunition. Dead ships became guided missiles. Destroyed weapons continued functioning as remote-controlled bombs. Even death was not stopping the human assault. The battle continued for 12 more hours. But the outcome was never in doubt after the human fleet revealed itself. The Devourers, who had consumed civilizations for millions of years, found themselves being systematically destroyed by a species they had never heard of 6 months ago. When it was over, the Thermopylae system was full of debris from 10,000 Devourer ships. Less than 50 enemy vessels had survived, and those were damaged beyond repair. The human losses were significant but acceptable by their standards. Roughly 30% of their fleet. "Sir, Admiral Chen is requesting permission to address the coalition," his communications officer announced. "Put her through." Admiral Chen appeared on the main screen. Her uniform was damaged and her face was covered in soot, but her eyes still held that predatory gleam. "Coalition observers, the Thermopylae operation is complete. Devourer military capability in this sector has been eliminated. We are beginning Phase 2 of our campaign." "Phase 2? Zekthara asked. "We are taking the war to them, Commander. Human forces are now moving to attack Devourer breeding worlds in dark space. We have captured enough enemy ships to track their home systems." Admiral Vexnor's voice came through the channel. "Admiral Chen, a counteroffensive into dark space has never been attempted. It is impossibly dangerous." "Admiral, impossibly dangerous was the Devourer invasion. What we are doing now is just warfare." "You are talking about genocide," General Morath protested. "The complete extinction of an entire species." Admiral Chen's expression did not change. Yes. The channel fell silent. Zekthara felt a chill as he realized what the humans intended. They were not content with defeating the Devourers. They planned to hunt them to extinction across the galaxy. Admiral Chen, he said carefully, such an operation would require resources and commitment beyond anything the Coalition has ever attempted. Commander, this operation will be entirely human. We do not require Coalition assistance or approval. You are declaring war on an entire species without galactic authorization? Admiral Chen's smile returned. Commander, we declared war the moment they attacked our territory. Everything since then has just been us deciding how thoroughly we intend to win. The transmission ended. Around the Thermopylae system, human ships were already organizing into new formations. Massive vessels that Zekthara had never seen before were arriving through those impossible dimensional jumps. Sir, I am reading human fleet movements throughout the galaxy, the tactical officer reported. They appear to be launching simultaneous attacks on dozens of Devourer positions. Zekthara studied the tactical display showing human operations across hundreds of star systems. The scope was staggering. Humanity had mobilized military forces larger than the entire Coalition fleet. How long have they been planning this? His aide asked in wonder. Since the day they joined the Coalition, Zekthara replied. He finally understood the truth about humanity's membership in the galactic community. They had not joined seeking protection or knowledge. They had joined to identify potential threats and prepare countermeasures. The humans had spent 6 months studying every species in the galaxy, learning their capabilities and weaknesses. The Devourers had simply been the first enemy to reveal themselves. Sir, incoming priority message from Coalition Command. Admiral Vex Nor appeared on the screen, his scales glowing deep orange with concern. Commander Zekthara, your orders are to continue observing human operations and report on their capabilities. The Coalition Council needs to understand what we are dealing with. Sir, I believe I already understand. Explain. Zekthara looked at the tactical display showing human fleets moving to attack an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years. Sir, we have been trying to categorize humans as either a peaceful species learning to defend themselves or a military species adapting to galactic threats. Both assessments are incorrect. What are they then? They are predators, sir. Apex predators. The kind of species that evolves when a world spends millions of years trying to kill everything on it. Admiral Vex Nor was quiet for a moment. And we invited them to join the Coalition. Yes, sir. We invited the most dangerous species in galactic history to become our allies. Is that good or bad for the Coalition? Zekthara watched as human ships disappeared into dark space, hunting an ancient enemy that had never been successfully challenged. Sir, I believe that depends entirely on whether we remain their allies. 6 months after first contact with the Devourers, the war was over. Zekthara stood in the observation deck of his ship, watching human vessels patrol the space where the ancient enemy had once thrived. The Devourers had not been defeated or driven back. They had been hunted to extinction across the galaxy. Human forces had followed them into dark space, tracked them to their breeding worlds, and eliminated them with methodical efficiency. It was the first time in recorded galactic history that an extinction-level threat had been completely removed from existence. The human ships moved through space with casual confidence, treating the former war zone like a routine patrol area. Construction vessels were already beginning to rebuild the destroyed worlds. Colony ships were heading towards systems that had been Devourer territory for thousands of years. Sir, Admiral Chen is coming aboard, his aide announced. Zekthara nodded, still staring out at the human fleet. In 6 months, he had watched a species transform from newcomers learning galactic politics into the dominant military force in known space. The Coalition Council was still trying to understand what had happened. Admiral Chen entered the observation deck, her uniform clean and pressed, despite having commanded the largest military operation in galactic history. She looked tired but satisfied, like a predator after a successful hunt. Commander Zekthara, thank you for your patience during our operations. Admiral Chen, I have questions. I expected you would. Zekthara turned from the window to face her. How long have your people been planning this? Zek, planning what specifically? All of it. The deception about your military capabilities. The secret fleets. The advanced technology. How long have humans been preparing for galactic war? Admiral Chen smiled, but it was a tired expression now, not the predatory grin she had worn during combat. Commander, we have been preparing for war since before we knew there was a galaxy to fight over. It is what we do. It is what we are. I do not understand. Admiral Chen moved to stand beside him at the observation window. Outside, human engineers were beginning to dismantle the remains of Devourer installations. Let me ask you something, Commander. How many wars has your species fought in the last 1,000 years? Noden. Zekthara considered the question. The Vorthak Empire has maintained peace for over 800 years. Before that, we had occasional conflicts with neighboring systems, perhaps 12 significant wars in total. 12 wars in 1,000 years. Admiral Chen repeated thoughtfully. Do you know how many wars humanity has fought in the same time period? Quote, okay, I have studied your history. The number is disturbing. Over 600 major conflicts, thousands of minor ones. We have never experienced more than 50 years of complete peace at any point in our recorded history. Zekthara stared at her in shock. That is impossible. No species could maintain such constant warfare and still develop advanced civilization. Most species could not. But humans evolved under unique circumstances. Admiral Chen activated a holographic display showing Earth's geological history. Our world spent millions of years trying to kill us, Commander. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, plague, famine, and predators that made the Devourers look gentle. The only humans who survived were the ones who were better at fighting than anything that wanted to eat them. The display showed human evolutionary development. Zekthara had seen similar information before. But Admiral Chen was highlighting aspects that made him uncomfortable. Most species evolve as prey animals that develop intelligence to hide from predators, she continued. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We did not run from dangerous creatures. We chased them until they died of exhaustion, but you developed peaceful societies. Art, philosophy, science. Yes, but always in the context of competition and conflict. Our greatest artistic achievements celebrate warriors. Our philosophy focuses on concepts like honor, courage, and sacrifice in battle. Our scientific advances are driven primarily by military applications. Admiral Chen changed the display to show human cultural development. We turned warfare into entertainment, Commander. We create games about combat. We write stories about heroes who solve problems through violence. We make music that celebrates battle. Other species see war as a terrible necessity. Humans see it as the most meaningful activity possible. Zekthara felt a growing sense of unease as he processed this information. When you joined the coalition, you were not seeking protection. No, we were conducting reconnaissance. You were evaluating us as potential threats, and as potential allies. The evaluation is ongoing. Admiral Chen turned from the display to look directly at him. Commander, when humans first detected radio signals from other civilizations, our governments immediately began developing weapons capable of destroying entire star systems. When we achieved faster-than-light travel, our first ships were warships, disguised as exploration vessels. When we made contact with the coalition, every human colony began secret military preparations. You have been preparing to fight us since first contact. We have been preparing to fight everyone since first contact. It is what we do. The casual way she said it made Zekthara's blood run cold. Admiral, the coalition accepted humanity as a peaceful member species. The coalition saw what we wanted you to see. We are very good at camouflage. It is a survival trait. Admiral Chen reactivated the display, showing human military capabilities that had been revealed during the Devourer War. Every human colony has hidden weapons factories. Every human trade ship carries enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. Every human civilian has basic military training. We have been building the largest military force in galactic history while pretending to be peaceful farmers and merchants. Why reveal this now? Because the Devourers gave us an acceptable target. We needed to field test our capabilities against a real threat. We needed to understand how galactic warfare works in practice. Zekthara realized the full scope of what he was hearing. The Devourer War was a training exercise for you. Partially, yes. It was our graduation exam from newcomer status to established power. And we passed? Admiral Chen's smile returned, but it was not reassuring. Commander, humans do not just pass tests. We break the grading system. She gestured toward the space where the Devourer threat had once existed. In 6 months, we eliminated an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years. We did not defeat them or drive them away. We hunted them to extinction using weapons and tactics that no other species could develop or employ. Because no other species thinks like humans. Exactly. Most civilizations develop intelligence to solve problems through cooperation and negotiation. Humans developed intelligence to solve problems through superior violence. Admiral Chen paused, studying his expression. Commander, may I ask what you plan to include in your final report to the Coalition Council? Zekthara had been dreading this question. His report would determine how the Coalition responded to humanity's true nature. The decision could shape galactic politics for centuries. What would you recommend I tell them? The truth. We are not like other species. We do not think like other species. We do not fight like other species. We are what happens when evolution creates a sentient species specifically designed for warfare. And you believe the Coalition should accept this? Admiral Chen moved back to the observation window, watching as human ships continued their patrol of former Devourer territory. Commander, the Coalition has a choice. You can accept humanity as an ally, with all the benefits and risks that involves. Or, you can classify us as a threat and attempt to contain us. What would happen if the Coalition chose containment? Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was calm and matter-of-fact. Commander, we have been members of the Coalition for 6 months. In that time, we have studied every member species, mapped every major military installation, and identified every possible strategic weakness in Coalition defenses. You have been planning to fight the Coalition. We have been planning to fight everyone, including ourselves. It is what we do. The implications hit Zekthara like a physical blow. Humanity had not just been preparing for external threats. They had been preparing for the possibility that the Coalition itself might become an enemy. How long would the Coalition last in a war with humanity? Based on our analysis, 3 months. Maybe 4 if you managed perfect coordination between all member species. Admiral Chen turned back to face him. But that assumes we wanted to conquer the Coalition. If we simply wanted to eliminate threats to human security, the timeline would be much shorter. You are telling me we cannot win a war against you. Commander, you cannot survive a war against us. There is a difference. The observation deck fell silent, except for the quiet hum of the ship's systems. Zekthara stared out at the human fleet and tried to process what he had learned. Humanity was not a peaceful species learning to defend themselves. They were not even a military species adapting to galactic threats. They were something far more dangerous. A species engineered by evolution specifically for warfare, with intelligence advanced enough to make them the apex predator of any environment they encountered. Admiral, what do humans want from the Coalition? The same thing we have always wanted, Commander. We want to be left alone to live our lives in peace. And if that peace is threatened, Admiral Chen's smile became truly frightening. Then we will demonstrate why threatening human peace is the last mistake any species ever makes. After Admiral Chen left, Zekthara remained alone in the observation deck for hours, composing his final report to the Coalition Council. The document would be the most important piece of intelligence in galactic history. In the end, he wrote only one recommendation. The Coalition must maintain permanent alliance with humanity. This is not a suggestion based on military advantage or political benefit. This is a survival requirement. We have inadvertently allied ourselves with the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Our only option is to ensure they never have reason to consider us a threat. As he submitted the report, Zekthara realized the truth that would define galactic politics for generations to come. The conflict had felt familiar until he witnessed humans unleashed. Now he understood why. It had not been familiar because all species fight wars. It had been familiar because he had been watching predators hunt prey. He had just never realized which side humanity was on. Outside his window, human ships continued their patrol, guardians of a peace they had created through the complete elimination of anyone foolish enough to threaten it. For the first time in his 300-year career, Zekthera felt safe, and absolutely terrified.